Hey, what's going on, y'all? So, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Bible translation. So, let's get into it. So, just a heads up, I'm going to be mentioning a few Bibles and other resources in a little bit. And so, if you want to take a closer look at any of those, hey, there'll be links into the description. I just wanted to let y'all know. So, all right, so let's get to it. So, when it comes to Bible translations, you can think of it as a spectrum. See, on the one hand, you have the formally equivalent, that is our word for word translation. And on the other, you have a functionally equivalent or a thought for thought translation. Now, formally equivalent means that the translators are aiming to produce a work that preserves as much as possible the number of words and grammatical structure, as well as making sure that the word choice in the target language matches it as closely is a close as close a match as possible to the original text. Now, they also want to make sure that the context is preserved also to the greatest degree as possible. Now, because languages often are very, very different from one another, a formally equivalent translation can result in a more or less stilted sound in the final translated text. However, a few of the better examples of this method of translation are the beloved King James Bible. This is my personal one, and it's a very good translation. The King James has a strong reputation for it. Also, frankly, well, before I get to this, if you happen to be someone who already loves the King James, I recommend checking out the 1611 edition. This is beautiful. It's basically it's a facsimile of the original King James as it was first produced, with the artwork and so forth and spelling and all of that. It's really cool to look at. Next, there's the New King James. Here's an example of one. Although this is the Orthodox Study Bible, the New Testament is the New King James. The Old Testament it's still basically the New King James, except it's been corrected for the Septuagint, which is the New Testament, we could say, of the early church. It is the really the preferred one. Well, we'll get there in a little bit, but I'll just say here's a copy of my Septuagint, one of my Septuagints, and hey, y'all know, like I say, if it's good enough for Paul, it's good enough for y'all. So there's that. There's also the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, and then you can get into an interlinear Bible. Again, here's an example of that, of one of mine. The thing about an interlinear Bible, if you haven't taken a look at this, or one of these, is that it shows the original word in whether it be Greek or Hebrew, or both in some case, depending on the publisher, but it shows the original word, the word in the original language, and then it has the translated word paired directly with it. And so that is a way that you can, it's a word for word way for you to go a little bit deeper into the text if that's the thing that you're interested in, if that's what you want to go to. So, on the other end of the spectrum is the functionally equivalent translation. So here the team of the translation team is looking to convey the meaning of the original text, but they aren't really so much concerned with the word count or grammatical structures. A few examples of this include the New International Version of the Bible, which copy here that I have, my own collection, the New Living Translation, and the New Revised Standard Version. Now, if I'm going to be honest, and I have to be honest with you, I don't like thought for thought translations. In fact, I don't think they should be called translations at all. Honestly, I think it'd be better to call them interpretations, because the fact is, the theological bias, even in with the people who have the best of intentions, a theological bias is going to get involved. The theological bias of the people who are part of the committee or the team, whatever they want to call themselves, is going to work their way into the translation, and that's a problem. And so if you're getting something that is thought for thought, that it just exacerbates it, in my opinion. Now, so for an example of that, one of the things that pops up, and I won't throw any names out there, but there are translations where the confession of the people involved, the religious confession of the people involved, have a negative view of Holy Tradition. Maybe it's probably just some Romophobia, as they say, that is still at work there. Nonetheless, what do they do whenever they come across the Greek text, for example, translation in the New Testament, when translation is mentioned in a positive light? Well, they render it into English as teaching. But then, what do you suppose happens if it comes up in a negative light? Well, you guessed it. Magically, it appears as that dreaded T word, tradition. This sort of thing is just plain old dishonest in my view. And so this also happens around gender, some so-called translations, like I said, interpretations want to get rid of words like father, get rid of male language, that kind of thing. It happens with the name of God itself. There are some non-Christian groups where they call themselves Christian. I'll just say the Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, where their book that they use, they take some incredible, really, really remarkable, I can't know what to say. It's amazing things that it's flat out dishonest, to be honest, in my opinion, with uses of the word God. And this happens with other subjects as well. So that's just to say, I personally avoid thought for thought interpretation. Translations. However, even with that, there is one form that is even worse than this. And these are paraphrased Bibles. These books, and because really it's a bit of a strain to call them Bibles, in this format, they take thought for thought process even further. With this, you have books like the Good News Bible, the Living Bible, or the Contemporary English Version. And these really should be avoided, again, in my opinion. Now we can try to be generous here and give the producers the benefit of the doubt and say that, they were really trying to offer the public a Bible that would be easy to understand, easy for the segment of the population that they're aiming at to understand, so they can grow in their faith towards God. We can be generous and give them the benefit of the doubt. But even so, as an individual Christian who desires to learn God's word so that I can order my life by it, I don't want or need really, someone to outright change, what has been said. I'd rather have what has been passed down throughout the ages. And so, with that, you might wonder, are there any trustworthy sources of instruction or interpretation of Holy Scriptures? Say we're going to pick, the King James, what have you, New King James, what have you. Are there any good and trustworthy sources of instruction for us? Well, there is to that question, there's the resounding answer, yes. Remember in Holy Scripture, there's a piece in the New Testament where a scene where there's the Ethiopian eunuch. He's traveling along in his chariot, and St. Philip overhears him reading from the Old Testament, overhears him reading from the Scriptures. And he runs up to his chariot and asks him, said, well, do you know what that means, what you're reading? And what does he say? He says, how can I know unless someone teaches me? That is the same attitude that every Christian needs to have. And so, as Orthodox Christians, we look to the Church Fathers. That is the holy ones of old who maintain the tradition that was handed down over by the apostles, by word or epistle. And so, when we examine the commentaries produced in our own days, the first thing we look to see is whether or not they're pointing us to what God has revealed. Are they quoting from the fathers or from the saints in context? Or, are their words accepted as authentically part of the tradition by the wider community of faith? Is there evidence of sanctity in the lives of the writers? These sort of things are what we are looking for with these commentaries in order to make sure that we're protected, that we're getting the truth of the gospel message, of the gospel interpretation, interpreting of the gospel message in order for us. So the safest path is to stick with the words of the saints. They're proven and trustworthy. So here are a couple of examples. Again, I brought a couple examples just from what I personally use for help in my own spiritual walk. So, for example, this is the word commentaries from Archbishop of Verriki on the Gospels, Acts and the Apostles, and then the Acts of the Apostles, and then the Epistles and the Book of Revelation. One of the things to do, apart from having, his own personal life, was pretty amazing and fully dedicated to Christ, proven. He constantly turns back to the saints, to what has been passed down. Then this is Blessed Theophylact, Saint Theophylact. This just happens to be the commentaries on the Gospels. This is a work that's still in translation. There are a number of the epistles that have already been translated, but it's sort of an ongoing work of translation to the English language. Then there's the Ancient Christian Commentary on the Scripture. Here's one example of this. This provides large sections from the early church addressing basically verse for verse through Holy Scriptures. There's like 29 volumes in this series. It's really good. Although with this, I'll tell you, there are some ancient writers that aren't canonized saints that they include with it as well. So if you do happen to look at this, my advice, at least what I do for myself, look, if you don't recognize the name of the author as a canonized saint, do a quick Google search, hop online, find out what you get, just to confirm. But nevertheless, this is a pretty outstanding resource. And then finally, I just have as another example, the Homilies of St. Gregory Palamas. Now, this isn't a commentary proper like you might think. However, the index in the back of this is pretty phenomenal. In fact, everything by Mount Tabor Publishing is outstanding. And so what you can do is, if there's a portion of Scripture that you're dealing with that you want to understand better, St. Gregory Palamas, he quotes the Scriptures pretty extensively in the homilies that we have. And so what you can do is you can go there, find it. You'll most likely be able to find it in the back, and then you can go to the homily where he references it, and then that'll help you with getting a better understanding of that portion of Holy Scripture. So, stick with the saints. That is one where they're proven. It's the safe, proven path. They're proven trustworthy. All right. So, once we have this, though, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to use their words to help us understand Holy Scripture, but then to use that understanding of Holy Scripture to apply to our lives, to our own personal lives. I don't do this, if I'm studying Scripture, I don't look to see what the saints say so that I can point my finger at you and say, you're messing up in this and this way. No. That's not. If your vocation within the church, your vocation is to preach, that's one thing. But on a personal level, the reason that we have this is so that we can apply it to our own lives, right? And so, because if all we do is collect proof text and quotes, we just building up, honestly, we're just stoking the fires of hell for ourselves, because that won't help us. Having arguments with people isn't going to help us. Living out the commandments of God so that our souls can be healed, so that we can obtain salvation, so that we can partake of the divine nature, as St. Peter said. This is what it's about, right? And so we're missing the point if we go other directions, right? With it. So, we're given Holy Scripture so that we can meet God face to face. That's why we have it. So, now there's a lot that could be said about Bible translations. However, if it would have sort of wind us up now, but if you would like to go a little bit deeper into the weeds, there is an outstanding article that I'm going to put down in the description for you. All right. So check that link, go over there, leave a comment over there if you feel so inclined. It's a pretty good website that it's on, but that article in particular is pretty top notch. But anyhow, it'll take you a little bit deeper into the weeds about some translation problems, about the text behind it. Are you using the Septuagint or the Masoretic text for the Old Testament, for example? It matters. It really, really matters. And in fact, if you want, put a comment in the description, and maybe I'll do another video going about the differences in that and why it matters so much. But let me know. Yeah, let me know if you want to see a video that deals with that. But in this article, it'll take you into like I said, into the weeds a little bit more on that. So if you like videos like this, hey, why don't you drop a comment? Let me know. And tell you what, God bless and take care.